Hi guys, welcome to today's live. My name is Mckenna Blanthorn and I'm going to be your host today. So this is just going to be a short little kind of Q&A about the new Portrait 4, and then also I'm going to demonstrate the new heat pen with you, which I think is one of the key features of the Portrait 4 compared to the Portrait 3. So if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. First off though, it's been so long since I've gotten to do a live, and my favorite thing about a live is just getting to know where all of you guys are from. So if you'll put in the where you're from, I'd love to shout out a few of you guys while we get started.
Can't hear you. Can Instagram hear? Ask
Can Instagram hear me? We have Instagram and YouTube. So somebody said on YouTube that they couldn't hear me. So somebody could just let me know.
Instagram's good.
Okay, Instagram's good. Well, Dallas, Houston. Perfect.
Dallas, Georgia.
Oh, okay, Dallas. Okay, San Diego. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Kelly said she can hear both, so I think we're good to keep going. Okay, so we have Jen, who's going to be moderating on the silhouette side, and then we also have Kelly, and Kelly is another one of our silhouette instructors. So if you have any questions, Jen is going to be asking some of those questions to me out loud too, but hopefully Kelly can get to our questions in the comments that we don't get to in this little segment. So we are just going to go ahead and dive in. I'm going to tell you guys a few key points about the Portrait 4, and then like I said, we're going to do a demonstration, and if you guys have any questions, go ahead and just put those in the comment section as well. So to start out, I just want to talk about the visual differences of the Portrait 4. So this is the Portrait 3 over here. As you can see, it was a little bit rounder, but size-wise, they're very comparable in size. I'm actually just going to move the Portrait 3 over here so you guys can see. Obviously, the Portrait 4 is like a tiny bit taller and just a little bit bigger overall. You can get the full specs on the website, but still the Portrait 3 was extremely portable, and that is also what we think about the Portrait 4. And the reason that I think that is because several times I have been able to do projects with family members, and they're like, oh, Mckenna, like bring your silhouette machine down, like let's do something. And I always bring the Portrait. I think they know the Cameo exists too, but the Portrait just literally fits in my backpack or like a large purse, and I can just put the cord in. And since it's Bluetooth compatible, both models were Bluetooth compatible, but the Portrait 4 is just the Bluetooth connects every time so seamlessly, so perfectly. And since it is Bluetooth compatible, I don't need the connection cord to the computer. So I just need to take the actual machine with me and then the power cord. And that just makes it super, super easy to take places. I know a lot of small business owners will use it. Like if you have a sticker business, it takes up less space. So you can have a lot of portraits running at once. And then also if you are using it to like take to a client's home to maybe do some organizing, organizational businesses I've seen use it, or also like a logo business. If you're like a graphic designer and you're putting a logo for a client on something, that is an awesome way. I actually was in Costco like this time last year, and they had a Portrait 3 sitting there, but it was a separate company. It was like a phone company, a phone case company, and they had a Portrait 3 there to put like your name on when you dropped off your phone or whatever to get repaired and things, or your phone case. And I thought that was kind of cool. I was just walking through and I was like, oh my gosh, it's a Portrait. So those are just some fun ideas on ways that a smaller machine is easier. If you don't have a designated craft space either, I highly recommend the Portrait just because it doesn't take up as much room. It's really easy to just pull out of like a cabinet and put on your kitchen table or your kitchen counter. So I also was just going to be maybe looking at this just to see as we go. So it doesn't look like we have any questions so far. So a couple other things I want to point out with the Portrait. Like I said, it's Bluetooth compatible just like the Portrait 3 was, but I've just found that the Portrait 4 Bluetooth works seamlessly. Seriously, it works so good. And then it also has this repeat job function that we brought back. That was not on the Portrait 3 machine, but it was on some of the older Cameo models, and you guys loved it. So we put it on the Portrait 4 again. And then your little keypad looks a little bit different. The buttons are more like of an inward impression instead of these right here. So it still has that upward, downward, sideward arrows for like print and cut manual registration if you need to do that, or if you just need to move your blade around, or your heat pen, which is really important, which I'm going to show you guys. So we added a couple buttons down there, and then it has your load and unload, and then the pause button is just in the middle. So your actual keypad looks a lot more similar to the Cameo than the Portrait 3 model did with the Cameo 4. I'm going to get all mixed up with my names and numbers, but hopefully I can keep it all straight. So those are some of the main functions visually. And then also you'll notice that we changed the bar down here. It is extremely sturdy. And then to move these, you're just going to pop that tab up and then slide it, and it clicks into place because there's little imprints that it clicks into. So visually, those are the features. And then oh yeah.
Someone has a question saying, would you say that the Portrait 4 is better than the Cameo? Maybe explain how.
Okay, what I say, the question was, would I say the Portrait 4 is better than the Cameo? Obviously, both models have a brand new machine, which are extremely compatible and very much alike. But if you don't have your own crafting space, like I said, I would recommend the Portrait 4. The only thing is if you're doing bigger projects, you're going to want to use the Cameo. The Portrait 4 has a max cutting width of 9 inches, and we sell 9-inch vinyl that you can buy, or you can use whatever vinyl, but that's the max width. So if you're going to be using like 12 by 12 paper or 12 by 12 vinyl or doing extremely wide projects, you're going to want to go with the Cameo. So it's not that one is necessarily better than the other, but it's just smaller and bigger. So, and here's the Cameo 5 too. So these are just beautiful machines though. The new Cameo 4 and the new Cameo 5 and the new Portrait 4 are really, really beautiful machines. And the Portrait does just come in white, but it still is a different white. It's kind of like this like glossy white, and then when you open it up, it has a really nice hinge opening. And then I want to show you a couple of the key features that the Portrait 4 has that the Portrait 3 doesn't. So if you have any questions about like the Portrait 3 versus the 4, still put those in the comments. But now we're going to kind of move on and talk about the features that this one has that the other one doesn't. So first and foremost, that I know you guys are excited about, because I was so excited about it when I heard about the Portrait 4, is the heat pen. So if you are familiar with like the old Cameo models, people would use like other branded heat pens, but we didn't have a heat pen ourselves here at Silhouette, and it wasn't compatible with the Portrait because our carriage wasn't powered on the Portrait. So the Cameo 4, the Cameo 5 is different in that it has 2 carriages, but this one just has 1 carriage, but it didn't have any power before in the Portrait. It was just the power just moved the carriage along, but this actual piece wasn't powered, if that makes sense. I know that is kind of hard to explain, but now it is. There's electricity that goes through the carriage, so we can use the heat pen, which is really awesome. So when you buy the heat pen, it is separate, and maybe Jen or Kelly can look up on the website, because off the top of my head, I'm not sure how much it is, so they can link it for you. But this is the packaging that it looks like, and it comes with 2 separate heat pens. So it will come with these 2. They're both red toppers, but one of them's a little bit darker and one of them's a little bit lighter. And one of them is a 1 millimeter heat pen tip, and then the other one is a 2.5 millimeter heat pen tip. And so one of them is just a thicker line than the other one. So that's the only difference. And then also when you are using the heat pen in the Portrait 4, you need this little tiny device. And this just extends the carriage up here. We just click it on here. It's a magnet, and it just makes it a little bit taller so that the heat pen fits correctly into the carriage, because the blade, like the auto blade is all the way down here, but the heat pen is much taller. So in order for the heat pen to be the height that it is and not having to make different heat pens for the 5 or the Cameo 5 and the Portrait 4, we just made this little tiny piece that goes on the top, and then the electricity can still flow through the heat pen. So since I'm going to be demonstrating the heat pen for you today, I'm actually going to remove the auto blade, and then I'm going to plug in the heat pen, because it does take about, it says on the package, but it takes some time to heat up. We're just going to let it heat up until, I think it's at least 5 minutes, I know. So I want to use the thicker heat pen today, which is the 2.5 millimeter. So I'm just going to make sure that I have my little piece on the top, and then push that down in, and then click my It's not a blade, it's a pen. Click my pen in. And then here in my software, you guys can't see my software, but when you plug that in and when you connect to your machine, I got to turn my machine on. I didn't realize it was off. So to turn the portrait on, there's just a little power button on the left side, on my left side over here. And I'm just going to turn that so you guys can see it a little bit. And you're just going to hold it down. So that is one thing that is a little bit different from the older models than this one that I had to get used to at the start, was that you do need to hold the power button down when you are starting. So I turn my machine on, and then I'm connecting in my software over here. And then as soon as it connects, it should ask me if I want to start heating up my heat pen, which I do want to do that. So it's checking for a firmware update right now. Does anybody else feel like the firmware update always happens at the worst possible time? But I don't think there is a firmware update. So hopefully that's going to move on. But while that's doing that, I'm going to show you guys the ES mat. So this is our new electrostatic mat. We have it for the Cameo 5, and then it's also made for the Cameo 4, but it is not yet available for the, it's also made for the Portrait 4, but this Portrait 4 model is not currently available, but it is coming soon. So if you're interested in the electrostatic mat for the Portrait 4, just know that while it's not available on the website for purchase yet, it is going to be coming. And so I want to show you guys how that works. Kind of how it goes in. We're not going to be using it today because this is just a short demo, but I just want to show you guys how it goes in. So we have to remove this front piece of the portrait. So I just slid that little latch, and then it just pops right off. And then it has these little markers right here that are what connects it to the electricity of the machine. So I am just going to slide that in. Let's see, you want it to line up with there and then on the machine. There we go. And it is going to click into place. Okay, so it clicks into place. You guys could probably hear it click into place. And we're not going to be using it today, but we do have, Kelly did a video on our YouTube just like a week ago about using the electrostatic mat with the Cameo 5. So if you're interested to see how the electrostatic mat works, go ahead and check out that video. And I'm sure we can also put the link to that in the comment section. And it's still checking for a firmware update, so we're going to turn off the machine and turn it back on. Okay. And then to take off this electrostatic mat, it just comes right out. There's a little on the side that we click in. Okay, and it's not checking for a firmware update anymore. So that is the moral of the story. If it's stuck checking for a firmware update, turn it off and turn it back on. Okay, and then I'm just going to put my little front piece back on. And it just clicks right back into place. Okay, guys, so we are going to move our electrostatic mat out of the way. And if you do have any questions about the electrostatic mat, you can also put it in the comment section. Kelly has used it a lot, so she can answer those. Like I said, we're not really going to be talking about it today since we're just demoing the Portrait 4 and the heat pen. But that's what we're going to do now. So here in my software, now that everything's on and working, I got a pop-up that says heat pen detected. Would you like to preheat the pen now? This will take approximately 3 minutes. So I'm just going to click turn on now. And then it's just going to take 3 minutes to heat up. And while it's doing that, there's a little thermometer that shows up in your send panel, and it's kind of like a loading thermometer. So that's how you know that it's heating and that it's not quite ready yet. Also, it won't let you send anything until the pen is actually ready to use. So now I'm going to go back to, we're going to go to the software, and I'm just going to make a little star or something to show you guys. But first off, we are going to use this little card that I cut earlier. And we are going to attach our foil transfer material to that. So I'm just using a little 4x6 card. I just had a piece of cardstock that I cut before this class, and I'm just going to add that piece of cardstock to my Portrait 4 mat, just up in the corner. And then I am going to take some foil, and I want you guys to pick. We have gold foil or we have silver foil. So I have the Instagram pulled up. I don't have the YouTube pulled up right now around me. So if you have a preference on gold or silver, someone in the comment section on Instagram, tell me which one you guys want me to use. Silver. Okay, that's going to be so pretty. And then I just brought up a star in my Silhouette Studio just with like my flexi shapes. And I just have that kind of like up in the corner. And then I am going to change my material to be 4x6 because that is the size of my card. So I know you guys can't see any of this, but we have tons of in-depth tutorials on our channel showing you all that you can do for that. And so I just made like a big star, and I'm just going to put it in the middle of my material. And actually something that I did wrong that you'll want to pay attention to when you're using the portrait is that the portrait mat has these extra lines on the outside of the sticky part. And my material, when I put the material on in Silhouette Studio, it wants me to line up the corner of my material with the very corner of that, not just the corner of the sticky part. So just pay attention to that to make sure that your designs are centered and everything. And then I am going to go ahead and center this star on here. Yeah, so it's going to go right in the middle. And then we are going to use our silver foil, and then you do have to tape it down. So let me move my computer so everybody can see. So this foil comes with the pens when you buy them from Silhouette America. And then I do need some scissors, which we've got right here. And I'm just going to cut a strip of the foil, and it's super thin, so be careful to not tear it. I've never had any issues tearing it, but just make sure to be careful when you are cutting. And then you are going to put foil up the backside. That's kind of like this like reddish color is going to go on the down. And then I'm just using some Silhouette washi tape that also comes with the kit to tape it down. And you want to use washi tape. You don't want to use other tape because it might pull up your paper. And I just want to tell everybody, so next week, Kelly is going to be showing me how to use the Cameo, the new Curio 2. All these numbers and names, man. So next week, Kelly's going to be showing me how to use the Curio 2 in another live. And I haven't really used the Curio 2, but one thing that I'm super excited about with it is that you can use it to foil things that have a higher clearance. So specifically like a notebook, which I think would make such beautiful, nice Christmas gifts. So make sure to tune in next week as well to check that out, because I think that is going to be such a fun live with both of us too. So you don't want to miss it. So now that I have my foil on my piece of paper, we're going to go ahead and load that into the machine. And you load it the same as any other of the machines. But one thing I want to point out is they did switch the load and unload button. They're flipped, which was kind of hard for me at the start, but they're really nice. So it works out now. So you're just going to line that up, push it as far as you can, and then press the upward arrow button. Okay, and now in our software, I'm just going to come over to my send panel and then select the material. Okay, and then all I have to do is just click send. My pen is heated now too. So it doesn't give you like a warning or anything when your pen is heated. It just finally lets you actually do whatever you're wanting to do. Okay, so it's super, super fast, as you guys can see. And I know that you guys probably can't see it in the machine, but it leaves like a really, really nice line around it. So that's how you know that the foil transferred and worked. So now I'm going to unload it, and then maybe we can put that up close so everybody can see what it looks like. I might even just go up to each of the cameras if that's okay to show it. So this is what it looks like when you bring it out. So you can see that it kind of like, it didn't cut through, but it just went around it. So I'm going to show that to this one too. Oh, whoops. There we go. I'm going to back up for that one. That camera was flipped, so. Okay, Brian's going to zoom in and show the YouTube audience that. So that's what it looks like when you take it out. And then we're just going to go ahead and pull off our tape. And it is washi tape, so it comes off pretty easy, but just be careful with that. And then, oh guys, it looks good. So then I'll just show you guys that. And I could have used a lot smaller piece of foil. You really only have to have your foil cover whatever space that you're using. So I'm just going to go ahead and flip that over so you guys can see it. Turned out super cool. So this is the heat pen with the Portrait 4. And sorry, Portrait 4. And so this is the thicker one, the 2.5 millimeter. The 1 millimeter is going to be a lot thinner than that. I prefer like the thick, chunkier line. But if you want a thinner line, like a more intricate line, that's why we have 2. So does anybody have any questions that I can answer? That's kind of our demonstration today, but I'd love to answer any questions for a few more minutes that you guys might have about either machine, mostly about the Portrait 4, but if you have some questions about like the differences from the Portrait 3, I'm more than happy to answer those. And then we do have, in the coming weeks, we have those other lives, like I said. So next week is our new Curio 2 machine, and that's going to be myself and then Kelly Wayment as well. And Kelly is so good at using the Curio. She makes really awesome stuff. And then after that, we're also going to have a Cameo 5 live as well. Yes, Jen.
Cube Creation says, what machines can use the heat pen?
Okay, perfect. So the heat pen is compatible with the new machines. So with the Portrait 4, with the Cameo 5, and with the Curio 2. So that is to answer that. So it's not compatible with the older models, but with the newer models it is. Yes.
And just a comment from Kelly that she likes the small tip for text.
Oh, that's a good point. So Kelly commented, for those of you that can't see it, and said that she really likes the small tip for text, which I think is a great idea. So maybe you use like the thicker tip for like a shape, like a star or something. And then if you wanted to write like a Christmas message on here, like be merry or Merry Christmas, something like that, since we are in Christmas time right now. But are there any other questions?
What types of paper?
Okay, I always just use the Michael's Recollection cardstock for any paper crafting that I do. So this is the bright colored pack. I just barely bought it a couple days ago. So right now they have like a standard rainbow pack and then they have a bright rainbow. So that's what this one was. And it's like all your regular colors, but just a little bit more vibrant and contrasted. So I always use the Michael's Recollection. It's 65-pound cardstock. But also when I use like printed items, I'm always using like 80-pound cardstock, which is my favorite for like print and cut projects. So anywhere between that range, just a nice, thick, heavy cardstock. But I always buy mine at Michael's. Yes, Jen.
And other types of paper or other materials? Kind of like you said, the notebook, if you were using materials.
Oh, yeah. So like what materials can you cut with the Portrait 4? Yes. Okay. So foil-wise, you'd want to stick with like papers for the foils in the Cami or in the Portrait. You wouldn't be able to like foil felt or anything, I don't think. Maybe somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think so. But then the Portrait 4, aside from the heat pen, cuts like your standard crafting materials. So vinyl, heat transfer, things like that. And then the Cameo 5, if you're looking to cut more materials than that, you're going to want to use the Cameo 5. So if you're doing like fabric, felt, without a stabilizer, craft foam, leather, things like that, that's what the Cameo 5 is for. So your Portrait cuts like all your basic materials, and then if you're going to want to foil anything with a clearance, you're going to need the Curio 2 machine because that has a thicker clearance for the material to pass through. Yes, Jen.
Someone's asking a good machine for a beginner. Would this be
okay.
A good machine for
I think for a beginner, the Portrait or the Cameo are really great options. When I started working here, I actually only had a Cameo just because that's kind of like the flagship machine. That's what most of our customers are using. So it's also the most versatile. But if you're just doing basic crafts and you're only going to be you're only going to be cutting paper, vinyl, and heat transfer, you don't need the Cameo, in my opinion. I think you just need the portrait because it's just a little bit more simple than the Cameo is. It doesn't like have as many things that you can do with it. So I think it's a little bit simpler than the Cameo. But that's just my opinion.
Someone asked about why would the ES mat be better?
Okay, so why is the ES mat better? So number one, you don't have to replace it, which is super awesome. Sticky mats like this, we send you with a blue cover that's like a wax paper that lays on top of it. And they're super great. They last a long time, but they don't last forever. I think especially if you're using like a fibrous material like felt or foam or even like a cardstock that has a lot of fibers in it, this is not going to last you very long at all. So that is why we created the ES mat, because it doesn't ever have to be replaced. And another thing is it can cut extremely intricate designs. So this snowflake is what Kelly demonstrated with the ES mat last week. And you can see that on our YouTube channel. And how it works, I mean, as you guys can imagine, with it being an electrostatic mat, is it holds the paper through electricity, the static electricity, and then it just keeps it right in place as it cuts all of these super intricate designs. So those are two big pluses, I think, to the ES mat, is that you don't have to replace it, and then it just cuts really, really intricate designs as well. Okay. All right.
I want to ask about filling in with the heat pen.
Okay, filling in with the heat pen. I have never done that, but Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we can do that. We can do like a solid shape. Okay, so that's just an option you would do in the software. And I'm kind of thinking that for my next tutorial that I film for YouTube, I will do a heat pen tutorial, hopefully. So maybe I will show like the different ways that you can fill it in. So I think that is all the time we have today, guys, but thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learned a lot about the Portrait 4 and its amazing capabilities, and that you enjoyed watching the new heat pen, because I was super excited about it. So make sure to tune in next Thursday for that live with the Curio 2, and then the next Thursday for a live about the Cameo 5. But thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been so great to have you, and we'll see you next time.